Today, I wanted to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about the journey that I've been on and the inspiration behind Golden Mandala Yoga Soma Institute and the training certifications that I run and the coaching programs that I run. So you might be aware that I run Golden Mandala Yoga Summer Institute, that I started the institute. Originally, it was called Golden Mandala Yoga School, and then I changed the name to Golden Mandala Yoga Summer Institute. It's been running for close to 4 years now, 3.5 years. And I set it up just before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, which further motivated me out of necessity to actually, start really go serious around delivering training certifications. And I started with trauma-informed yoga and embodied resilience teacher trainings, and done 11 cohorts so far, which has been absolutely amazing. And I set up other programs as well. And I tell you about this in a moment. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about my journey and the approach that I take when I work with clients, when I deliver training certifications or a group coaching program. So I moved to London when I was 18, and I was very introverted, quite anxious. I moved to London. I didn't know anybody. My mum paid for a friend of mine who was a year older, family friend who was a year older, to come with me for 3 days and help me find accommodation. Then she left. And there I was, 18 years old, alone in London, not knowing anybody. And I went to a school of English language. I've already been studying English language for about 6 years in Poland. It was quite hard. And you can imagine being 18 years old on your own in London, over 30 years ago. Um, I lived in Lambeth, south of London, out of all places. There was a lot of challenges around really being in a very different culture, different language, different understanding. Lambeth was very, very multicultural. It was quite a full-on experience, very rich, full-on experience. And after a couple of years, I was lucky enough, I came across Buddhist Center in Bethnal Green in East London. And I started learning yoga. And I started also the same time I learned mindfulness and metta bhavana, loving kindness. Because there was a Buddhist center, and they ran mindfulness courses and other Buddhist courses. And then they also had Bodywise, which is a yoga and wellness center run by the same Buddhist community. And I was very lucky that I came across it. I learned mindfulness and I started learning yoga. And those two practices have been part of me for the last 30 years. I have got a very strong practice, daily practice, and yoga and mindfulness has always been the two practices that I always come back to, no matter what other things I am learning or practicing. And over the first few years I was working, I was learning English. I also decided then after a few years I studied counseling. I did introduction to existentialist counseling for half a year. And then I did a whole year of person-centered individual and group counseling. And I learned so much, so much. And then I decided to go and do some more training around NLP. I trained in NLP and master NLP, and I did quite a lot of coaching courses. So right from the beginning, I was always really interested in learning. I was always fascinated by learning. And throughout the last 30 years, I've really done so many different trainings. that I and this knowledge and that understanding I bring into the training certifications and the group coaching program that I run. And and then I was looking for work. I didn't want to continue, working in restaurants. And when I was doing the NLP training, I met somebody who was actually a manager at the dual diagnosis community service, so drugs and mental health service in North London. And I decided to become a volunteer there. I volunteered full time for I think about 4 to 6 weeks, and I loved it. And then they signed me up to become a project worker, and I worked there, I think, for about a year and a half. Right from the beginning, it was amazing place. Right from the beginning, I was trained how to deliver groups and group program, psychoeducation, stress and anxiety management, self-care, um, loads of support groups. We had the full program, and I was trained in that, and that was really amazing. One of the really beautiful things about working in social care is that you get trained in so many different things, and then on a daily basis, you work with a lot of clients. So it's not like you going and you're just training in something and then you're not implementing it, you're not learning, you're not practicing. You do both at the same time. And that's really, really interesting. And I love delivering groups right from the beginning because I love that group dynamic and the co-regulation and the joint learning, really exchange of learning and learning from each other and the impact that it has on individuals. And after being there for about a year and a half, I actually applied for another job in the central of London for a very unique, very, very unique project that sadly no longer exists called City Roads Crisis Intervention Centre. It was a very unique project because it was the only project of this kind in the whole of UK where clients from the whole of London, from all different boroughs, were able to self-refer if they were in crisis to come for quite a strong detoxification with us. They would stay with us for 3 weeks, and in that time go through detox, sort out their health, and then we would work with care managers to send them on to um, go maybe to further therapeutic residential rehabilitation centers longer term. Um, a lot of our clients came in, left, and they were allowed to do that, which again was quite unique. Built really strong relationships with the clients. And I was working there again as a group and activities coordinator. I did a lot of stuff with our clients. I absolutely loved it. I created a group program, reviewed the existing one, changed it. Um, and worked with many, many clients. I mean, the service was very unique because we had about 1,000 clients coming every single year, and I was there for 6 years. So seen a lot of clients, connected with a lot of clients, worked with a lot of clients. And when I was working at City Roads, I also trained as a mindfulness yoga and meditation teacher. So that was about 13 years ago. I was working full time in there. It was really full on work. You never knew what you were coming into on the day. There might have been some drugs in the house, might have been a complete lockdown and a searching of everything and dealing with the outcome and the rage in the client group. It was very, very full on. But at the same time, it was really amazing to develop skills of supporting other people when they are distressed or when they're struggling or when they're craving or when they're having, psychosis or mental health issues. Or all of this was so raw in there. And I absolutely loved working there, but it was very, very full on. And as I said, I trained as mindfulness yoga and meditation teacher when I was working there over 13 years ago, and that was really great as well. I had a privilege of training with a teacher who was also a clinical psychologist, who was working, funnily enough, at the time at the Priory, same client group, but, or rather, I would say, similar challenges, dual diagnosis, substance misuse, mental health. But he was working with um, clients who did have money, who could pay for their treatment. And I was working with clients who were supported by the local councils and funded by local councils. So it was really interesting to actually learn mindfulness yoga and meditation from somebody who understood the kind of challenges that I was going through at work and who also could support me around that, and who understood that I wanted to bring this work. I wanted to merge the two paths of my life and my work, um, because it felt like there was such a split. There was biopsychosocial approach of working in social care with my clients, but the body was not included in that. And I wanted more of this understanding of how to work in a more holistic way, to bring more mindfulness, to bring more body focused stuff into work with my clients, and part of it was to arrange activities for the clients that they would get the chance to um, work with them. So having somebody from the North London Buddhist Center coming in and teaching loving kindness for self meditation that I've been practicing since then. Um, Having somebody Emma, who is a 5 rhythms teacher, coming in and doing 5 rhythms dance for our clients. And I'm still in contact with Emma. I'm reconnected with her recently, and she is doing some sessions for our trauma-informed somatic teacher and coach for women training certification. So it's really exciting. I've known Emma for over 20 years. We met 20 years ago at City Roads. And when I stayed at City Roads for about 6 years. Interestingly, I met my partner there. We've been together for 20 years now. He's still working in social care in a long-term therapeutic residential center for people recovering from drug and alcohol misuse. And then we moved down to Kent, and my work shifted more towards family work. And this is a big shift, and I wanted that shift because I understood that working just with individuals is one thing, but actually, and taking them out of their life is one thing, but actually, what we need to do is to look at the whole systems. And the family work was absolutely amazing in this way because you work with the whole system, you impact the whole system in the natural environment where that family lives. So the impact is much greater, the healing is much greater in that sense. And so I was doing quite a lot of outreach for a few years. Then I was part of the group setting up the projects across Kent under Troubled Families Agenda, which was a government agenda and funding. I trained, managed, supervised teams, and really holding space for the frontline workers to do their work in a very safe way. And that was very, very rewarding, a very rewarding post. And the same time as we moved to Kent, I met somebody who was just setting up a yoga studio locally in the place where I live. And we got friendly, and I started teaching yoga, mindfulness yoga and meditation in that studio, which was really amazing. So can you see there is this kind of split trying to merge those two paths, and really kind of struggling initially to do that. And in my own practice, I was more and more drawn into this more holistic way of working. I've done some more trainings along the way, lots of training around, working in social care, but also a lot of training on my own outside of my working hours, really learning more about working with people. And I decided at some point that I wanted to go fully self-employed, and I did that plunge almost 8 years ago. I decided um, that I really wanted to focus more on running yoga and wellness studio, and also coaching my clients and working in clients. In a much more holistic way, and not and shifting from more of this crisis intervention work into much more um, long-term work, really impacting the community, impacting families in that way, not when they are at the crisis point, but to actually at a different point where um, people, women and people are much more settled, um, and it can impact their old families in a different way. And so I left almost 8 years ago my social care job, and I continued running the studio and um, doing lots of workshops, doing lots of different classes, working more and more with one-to-one clients, doing coaching, holistic coaching, what I called at the time embodied wisdom coaching, and bringing much more of this integration of um, what I learned through all of those years of working in social care, and also what I learned from many different coachings and my own practice. And so, one of the things that is really important for me is that I always teach what I practice myself. That I don't teach things that I know through just the courses or through academia or through that I haven't experienced myself. Uh, for example, one of those things is, I did a lot of embodiment courses. I did a lot of coaching courses. 5 years ago, I came across focusing. So I read a couple of books about focusing. I call it embodied listening. And then 5 years ago, I decided to do a training around it, to really do a 1 year comprehensive training and then train as a focusing practitioner. And I had the privilege of working with Fiona Parr, who is a long-term practitioner and a trainer. So focusing, if you don't know focusing, I call it embodied listening, is the practice that came from 1950s from Eugene Ganglin, and uh, who wanted to understand why some people were successful in their counseling or in their therapy. Um, Successful meaning able to make significant positive changes in the way that they think, feel, and make decisions and interact in life. And what they realized really quickly, so they recorded some of the sessions, quite a lot of sessions. And what they realized was that they were able to predict within the first two sessions whether somebody would make those positive, significant changes. And it had nothing to do with the therapist. It had everything to do in a way that clients were able to connect with their inner experience. And what they were doing is they didn't stay on the mind level, telling the stories and how they felt, but they would pause throughout telling the story and checking in within their body. So they might be saying things like, and he said this and we had this exchange and I felt really bad. And then they would pause and say, oh, let me check. Uh, uh, Bed, by bed, I mean, I actually felt this clenching in my gut and I felt this rage coming up, or I felt this sadness enveloping me. That's like really deep within me, within my chest. So they were able to connect with their body felt experience of what they were going through or what they were talking about, the story. It wasn't just on the mind level, it was real embodied experience. So focusing, really, when I started learning focusing um, 5 years ago, it really gave me this depth, going beyond mindfulness, going beyond in mindfulness and awareness into this embodied experience, and working with felt senses, working with parts. And in those 5 years, I also did, as I said, a lot of embodiment courses and coaching. I have a focusing partner who did the training with me all the way through. And, we've been meeting. Sometimes we went through a period of meeting twice a week during the pandemic because we both needed it. We both needed somebody to hold a safe space for us to really connect with what's happening within us and shift into the sense of safety. I've worked with IFS therapists, so internal family systems therapists, and other somatic practitioners. I've worked with IFS therapists, I think, for a year and a half. I so the things, I have got very strong personal practice. It's it's my way of connecting with myself. It's my way of taking care of myself. It's my way of really understanding what's going on for me. I am still training, since the beginning of the year. I've been training in more trauma-informed somatic and positive psych as a trauma-informed somatic and positive psychology coach. So I am on an ongoing journey of really learning more, of understanding more, of really having my own practice. This is not, for me, as I said, this is so important for me that I don't just learn something and then I tell you about this. It's not that I tell you about somatic checking in and I'm not doing it myself. It's not that teach you how to do somatic self-compassion, but I'm not doing it for myself. I am doing those practices on a daily basis. And this is something that I bring in when I do teacher trainings or training certifications. Right from the beginning, for me, the understanding is that if you want to learn trauma-informed somatic approach, you have to practice it. You cannot just say, I'm just going to do that. And, I double with it. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I'm not. Because of that way of learning, you can learn from books and you can learn from trainings and stay on the mind level and understand how it all works. And of course, it makes sense. But when you go into practice and you practice on a daily basis, you show up for yourself. You understand all of this. Um, you know what's required from you, what challenges come up. Only then, after you've been able to practice it for quite a long time, you can go into this embodied wisdom space where it just becomes you, it becomes part of you. It's like, I know you can learn about different nervous system regulation, nervous system states and polyvagal theory, or you can really keep checking in with yourself, and then you will be able to check in with yourself and know it won't take you a long time to understand what's going on for you. It's the same with focusing, embodied listening. It's the same with embodiment. It's the same with being trauma informed and using trauma informed language, for example. It's the same with the 5 principles of trauma informed care or trauma informed yoga approach. You have to practice it. It's the same with yoga. It's the same with mindfulness. You have to practice downwards facing dog or another pose that you practice regularly, depending on your body needs and your ability, again and again and again and again and again, to really understand the challenges that come from doing that pose or doing that practice. It's not enough to say, I'm practicing mindfulness and, I've done a little bit and every so often I'm just being mindful. That's very different than actually sitting your butt on your cushion on a daily basis for a longer period of time, months, years, decades, and really being able to be with your experience. The same with for somatic meditation that I teach in the coach, somatic teacher and coach training certification. There is so much to it. And that's the difference from idea into embodiment, really shifting it. And the interesting thing is that there is no shortcut for it, that you have to just show up, just practice, keep coming back, keep doing it again and again. And so this is how the Golden Mandala Yoga Soma Institute was born 3.5 years ago. Um, I wanted to share all that learning. I knew that there was um, need for that. I knew that, especially with the pandemic coming in, I realized that what I knew because of my social care work, because of all the training that I've done, um, and the yoga, mindfulness yoga and meditation training as well. I knew that there was a need for other practitioners to learn what I knew, that I could share it, that I could have that positive impact. And for me, ultimately, that's what it's about. It's that positive impact, sharing what I've learned, sharing what I know from my lived experience and from working from, thousands of clients to really, and, years and years and years of delivering groups and working one-to-one with clients and families and systems and bringing it all together. And so there are three things that I offer under Golden Mandala Yoga Soma Institute. One of them is the trauma-informed yoga and embodied resilience teacher training. And as I said, we've had 11 cohorts, absolutely amazing to see yoga teachers coming in and training in that approach. And for many, this is something new. For others, this course allows them to integrate all the other things, just like you would under one roof, and really taking it into their communities. The other training certification that we are running now is trauma-informed somatic teacher and coach for women. And I started running it this April 2023. We are halfway through with the beta course, and the feedback has been absolutely amazing. And, I had a couple of female practitioners say to me that that's the best training that they've been on. It comes from a very different perspective. It brings Soma, Psyche and Soul approach. I call it the Soma, Psyche, Soul coaching method. It teaches you trauma-informed approach, so a lot about trauma, nervous system regulation, polyvagal theory. It teaches you somatic practices, somatic movement, somatic meditation, and somatic practices for nervous system regulation. 3 different branches of somatic practices. And it also, as I said, gives you qualification as a somatic teacher and somatic trauma-informed somatic coach, with a specific focus on working with women, but those practices can be used with men and can be used with modification with children. But as women, we have got slightly different physiological needs. We've got slightly different roles that we play within our society and our lives. And I wanted a course to reflect that, because I am a woman and I know that as a practitioner, as a professional, as a different roles that I play within my life, I have got slightly different needs and I wanted to address that. And then there is one last program that I'm doing, which is um, Thriving Business Mandala 1 year group mentoring and coaching program. And that's for the second type of skills that you need as a wellness practitioner, as a wellness professional, and that is how to build a thriving and sustainable business that will support you and your family and your clients for years to come. And that's another program that comes from the understanding of the nervous system regulation and being a woman and working in cycles. And that's a wonderful program that I've been running since last year. So, and I also work one-to-one mentoring and coaching other practitioners, because I understand that some of us do prefer this one-to-one attention. It offers more intimacy, it offers more safety for some of us. And so this is the journey that I've been on, and it's been absolutely amazing and fascinating and challenging. Times very, very difficult. I know of one thing for sure, that the somatic practices that I learned along the way, that I share in the training certifications, the understanding comes from that lived experience. It doesn't come from just training in it. It comes from understanding of how it is on a day-to-day basis to work with clients, to work with people in various different settings, and understanding of the needs that different clients have, and also understanding the needs that we have as practitioners, our own needs, because burnout is so high within within yoga community, within wellness community. I hear that again and again and again, that people are burnout, that they've been trying to work in that very masculine way, focusing on business, hustling, pushing. And of course, you need to put lots of work into building a sustainable and thriving business. But ultimately, the hustle, you can't sustain that amount of energy unless you're young, unless, but it is very masculine way of doing business. And so for me, for example, as a woman who's 50 this year, it's unsustainable. I know that I cannot keep pushing through. I know that I cannot work in this way. And, that understanding and that knowledge is reflected in the training certifications and the Thriving Business Mandala um, coaching program that I deliver. It has to be aligned. If you are, I know that for myself and working with other practitioners, if you want to go the long way, you have to work in a way that is sustainable, that is aligned with your strengths, that is aligned with your vision and your values, that is aligned with the kind of impact you want to make within your community, that is aligned with cycles, that is aligned with mm, what's most important for you, but also with your commitments. If you're looking after your elderly parents, or if you're looking after children, or if you've got health conditions, chronic health conditions, long-term health conditions, or you're going through perimenopause like me, or menopause, and that's challenging at times, you have to work in a certain kind of way that is right for you. And the trainings and the coaching programs that I offer, all of those reflect that, because that's part of life for many of us. So I hope that gave you a little bit more of an understanding of how the trainings have been impacted, and how I run the trainings and what I offer. There is a lot of support, free support, and there is a lot of support within the communities of the trainings. Um, if you have got any questions, let me know, and I will be very happy to answer them. And I wish you a really, really good day. Take care.